if you want to be a successful house flipper, you need our mentorship. And so at the time, I'm like, hey, people pay $20,000 for college. What's $20,000 to make hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, like the opportunity cost? I looked at it as an investment.
Did they say that pitch during the $2,000 event? Like, oh, you see people spending $20,000, $40,000 on college every day and they never use it. You could spend $30,000 with us and make, $300,000 a year. Like, did they kind of use that in their pitch?
I'm sure, but I don't remember the
kind of like
specifics.
just hit subliminally a little bit.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, okay, it's basically like a justification, right? It's like when you come in with a low offer and then it justifies a price that might work. It's like this offer is going to be really low. Well, they probably present it in a way to where it's like justifiable, because a lot of people do that stuff, right? So long story short, man, raised the credit. I called my wife and I was just like, hey, here's an opportunity to do this. This is what they're saying is what the possibilities are. And my wife's like, that's a lot of money, because we don't have a lot of money right now. And she's like, I trust you. Go ahead and do it.
And how much were you making at the time?
Dude, I was making $25,000 a year at the time.
And it cost you $25,000 for the mentorship?
Yeah.
So your whole entire yearly income is spent on mentorship?
Yeah, it was literally figure it out or bankrupt. Yeah.
I mean, I like the bold choice. I don't like the high price tag, but I like the boldness of it. So where did that go?
Yeah, well, I always like to tell this part of the story because I get home from this event and my wife tells me that she's expecting our first child. And so as if the $25,000 lingering on the credit cards wasn't enough, now I'm going to be a new dad and the clock is basically ticking because it's 0% interest. So I knew that I had to figure this out within 12 to 16 months because I was paying $700 a month on just the interest up front. And that was like not the interest, the minimum payment, right, on the credit cards. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because that was clearly a stressful time in the.
That's a lot of stress. A baby coming on the way. Yeah. You got to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So you're like, you got to figure this thing out. So then how long did it take you to figure it out? What happened from that?
Yep. So essentially was following their instructions. At the time, I was trying to buy houses on the MLS. So I was basically using a template. I was submitting the offers. And that was about 4 months before I realized that ain't it for me. It wasn't working. That was in 2018. And at that time, I was just spinning wheels. And then I realized that I needed some more help. So then I seeked out a local mentor and he showed me how to go direct to seller, which at that point was driving for dollars, direct mail, and in bandit signs. And I finally got my first deal.
Bandit signs.
Right? 7 months in, man. 7 months in, I finally got my first deal that actually closed, for sale by owner on a fourplex.
Oh.
And dude, I made $22,000 on that first wholesale deal, and that changed my belief about the possibility that I could do this, and basically was off to the races from there because it was basically more money than I made at the job the whole year.
The first paycheck's so big. It just shows the proof of concept and shows that it's real at that point.
Yeah.
So once you see it's real, you get the first $22,000 check. I mean, like, are you hooked at that point? What happened from there?
Pretty much. I mean, if you can imagine, like, literally making $1,000 a week, every 2 weeks for a paycheck, going from that to cashing a $22,000 check, like, I was hooked. Like,
it's mind blowing.
I was like, this is insane, because like I didn't come from a family with like $40,000 a year was like good income, right? Like that was like a good normal salary. So like I was striving for $40,000 a year, but I made half of that in one check. And I'm like, I can do this over and over and over again, and the sky's the limit.
And where was that, by the way?
So that was in Nebraska.
It
was Lincoln, Nebraska, specifically. That's where I lived for about 10 years.
I'm from a smaller town too, so like 40,000 was like a good income. That's a grown-up income. Yeah. I feel like some of these Vegas kids are spoiled. Like, you know, you just go to the Strip, you see bartenders making 100,000 a year.
Right.
Their concept of money, I mean, someone could come here and blow 40,000 over the weekend.
Right.
Their concept of money is just so much more different than people from a small town where you're like, wow, 40,000, that's a grown man income.
Yeah, I mean, and to give some context, like Lincoln was the capital, like a bigger city. I grew up in a village, like it was 300 people. So I grew up in a tiny town that's like a post office, a bar, and that's it. And so like my environment was flipped upside down just by moving to the capital, let alone moving to Las Vegas, right? Like perspective changed.
Yeah. I mean, that must have been a huge change. You probably thought you were in a big city, and then you come here and then it's 10 times as big as Lincoln.
Yeah, kind of. And I knew that I wanted to get out of that environment. Like small town life was just not long term for me. Like I just knew the opportunities were so capped. It wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm. So you got the $22,000 paycheck, and then how did you scale your wholesaling business from there? Oh, you teamed up with one other person, right? But
Yep. So it was me for the first 6 deals. And actually I was splitting those first 6 deals with the guy who was mentoring me to do the direct to seller stuff. So he was showing me the ropes. And then from there, I had cold called my now business partner off of his for rent sign. So he was working a full-time job. I was working a full-time job. And I sold him the first handful of deals that we did. And at that point in time, he's like, well, he's pretty good at finding deals. I'm pretty good at flipping. I want to quit my job. He wants to quit his job. Let's just quit our jobs at the same time and go all in. And so essentially after the first year, we had met and got to know each other and decided we're going to partner up and do this together.